Today we have 4health Salmon and Potatoes dog food review. We're just going to talk about the food and I'm going to tell you what I think about each ingredient, the contents, and everything like that. So first of all, this is a 45-pound bag. It's very large. Um, Basically, 45 pounds is very heavy, so it's almost a 50-pound bag of food, and it's $60, $57 plus tax. So it's a pretty large bag of food. As you guys know, Victor High Protein Plus is off the shelf, so we're trying to look for replacements here and there, and we just been fiddling around with different foods. A lot of foods are just too expensive, and a lot of foods they just don't give you enough. But this is a pretty big bag, so let's get into the ingredients. Number one, you have salmon. Salmon is a good ingredient. It says that salmon is the number one ingredient, but I'm not sure if that's the truth. Um, so I'm going to give it a smell test at the end of the video. I'll give it a smell test and a look test. I can kind of smell, if it's fish in there or not. Um, so the number one ingredient is salmon. Salmon is a very good source of meat, fish. Next it says ocean fish. I don't know what that is. That's just could be anything. I don't know what an ocean fish is. It's just letting you know that these fish come from out of the ocean. So basically, they're using whatever they can find that day. So if they don't have salmon, probably they'll use any other fish that is available with a little bit of salmon. Next, we have potatoes. Potatoes is a carbohydrate. We actually feed our dogs a lot of potatoes. We boil them. We buy cases of potatoes. And one thing about a potato is it's a carbohydrate and a starch. So it's able to stay in the dog's stomachs. They don't really digest it too well, but what it actually does is gives them a short term, a carbohydrate that breaks down over a long period of time and not a short carbohydrate like a grain that'll just break down really fast. So basically, this will stick to their stomachs and hold them over, keep them full. Next, we have cracked barley, cracked pearled barley. I believe that that's just oatmeal. So you got oatmeal. Um, it's not. Well, barley is it's a it's a grain, and I know it'd be in the soup, it'd be in the vegetable soup. So barley is a very good grain. Um, it's not processed, and it's probably high in protein, and it's going to be good for their skin. I'm sure it's good for skin and coats for allergies. Oh, and I also forgot peas. It says peas. So actually, what's inside of this is peas, which actually they consider peas is actually beans. They call peas beans, chickpeas probably more than likely, and then you have pea flour. Why do you have peas and pea flour? I can only assume that if they run out of dried peas, I mean they're using pea flour. These peas have carbohydrates that break down slowly, and they also have um, protein in them, a short chain amino acid protein that's very absorbable for dogs. That is more likely for dogs that have allergies towards chicken and beef. Then it has egg product. What I learned about dog food is egg product is just leftover eggs that weren't fit for human consumption, or eggs that they just acquired, they're broken, or whatever the case may be. So it has egg product. What that does is it actually adds an extra protein and an extra like omega 3s or whatever, sixes, good for the skin and coat. Next, you have canola oil. The canola oil, I believe, is just giving it some kind of fat, extra fat or something like that. Not quite sure why. It has that in there. Then it has a bunch of other stuff in it, like a bunch of DL methane, chloride. Those are salts. It's got taurine. Taurine is something good for the bones. It has fortified with taurine for good heart health. Taurine actually helps prevent heart disease. So this dog food has one, two, like 3 or 4 additives, and I'll talk about each additive. One, it has the taurine. Taurine is a substance found in the heart to keep the heart pumping and functioning right, so dogs don't get enlarged hearts or heart disease or heart failure. Next, you have glucosamine and chondroitin. Glucosamine is the actual substance that is built up in cartilage for knees, for your dog's joints and knees. And chondroitin is actual component that keeps this glucosamine from breaking down. It has 300 milligrams of glucosamine and 100 milligrams of chondroitin. Is that in the whole bag? Is that per serving? I'm kind of confused on that. But I'm going to just say it's in the whole bag. I don't know. I'm not sure. It doesn't actually specify. So it says 300 milligrams glucosamine and 100 of chondroitin. I'm going to assume that's in a certain amount of this food. Maybe a cup. I'm going to assume that it's a cup, but it could be the whole bag. Next, each cup of food provides live active cultures to produce healthy digestive and immune system and help your dog maintain a active lifestyle. So it actually has like special bacteria that go in the stomach and help break down the food, help keep the gut health good. So that's good for like especially these young puppies I'm going to give this to because they don't really have too much in their stomachs. So they got to form their own cultures of bacteria that break down plant matter or break down, different types of things that are in the stomach. And next you have skin and coat. You have a blend of omega-6s and omega-3 fatty acids that help keep skin and coat healthy and shiny. So these omega-3s are in fish and they're in chicken, and I believe they're also in the canola oil. But next contains guaranteed levels of zinc, selenium, and vitamin E for immunity system antioxidants. So these antioxidants help fight against cancers and different things like that. The zinc is really good for that and the blood flow. So let's get right into it. Next, let's get into the levels. So because this all going to tie in. So we got the levels. We got 25% protein. So the fact that it has peas, pea protein, pea flour, it's letting me know that basically this doesn't have as much fish in it that it's claiming to have. Because if it did, why do you have to add pea protein? And the levels of protein in this fish, in this dog food are low, but not low in a bad way and not high in a good way. What I mean by low is normally the stuff we feed to our dogs, our bullies, is like 33% protein, which is really, really high. But at the end of the day, you got to realize it's not the levels of proteins or the amount of protein, it's the amount of protein and the quality of protein. So the quality of the protein and if the dog can actually absorb and use those proteins. So with 25% on here, it's a fairly, above one point above like or 4 points above, 5 points above a cheap crappy dog food. For instance, um, what is it called? Dog chow is probably 20% protein. So this is 5% more protein than a dog chow. Next, we have a fat of 14% crude fat. So with that being said, we know that basically from watching what's that damn guy? Raul from QB and Kennel, he likes to have 18% fat in his dog food or 20. Now, mind you, these numbers are very high numbers, but for bullies, we try to give them very high levels because at the end of the day, most times the dogs can't really absorb the stuff that they put in the dog food. So the numbers that you see and what the dog can actually use, they just don't match up. So you got to take that into consideration and kind of like balance it out on your own. Use your own kind of common sense to balance it out. So what that 14% fat means is really not a lot of fat in this food. Um, and you got to think, if I just added, if I'm fish, salmon is a high fatty fish. And so is this ocean fish. So why do they have to add the canola oil, the egg product? All these things add fat. So, it's probably not too much fat in this food, obviously, because obviously the number is 14%. Next, we get to the omega 6s. Omega 6s, we got 2.5%, and omega 3s, we got 0.5%. With that being said, a high level of omega 3s and omega 6s, I add those numbers together and give me a total score. If you have a 4, that's pretty high. If you have a 4.5, that's really high. But the fact that we only have a 3, that's medium. That's like above average. But if you're using salmon, which is very high in omega 3s or 6s or both, this dog food should have a higher level. But what I'll say is, and then also let's get down to calories per cup. 397 calories per cup. That's a lot of calories, about 400 calories per cup. And based on the peas, the potatoes, and the barley, and the pea flour, that kind of adds up, to like half of the calories are coming from carbohydrates. You want half and half is a pretty good number, but we'll say that half of the carbohydrates are coming. I mean, half of the calories are coming from carbohydrates, the other half from different sources of protein. But what I will say is this: the glucosamine and the chondroitin are good for the dog's knees and their hips, um, and that's great. That's great for dogs that grow really big and have problems with their knees and hips, like my Cane Corso and my other masters, and all my dogs. Because when you work your dogs out, you want them to have strong joints. Next, I will say that the protein is medium, and it's a good number, but it's not that high. But I'll say that pea protein is very good, and the fish protein is very good. So I'll give this dog food like a score of like a 75, 70 to 75, even though we haven't used it yet. And hold on, I'm going to crack this open and give it a smell test. So once I crack this open and give it a smell test, my nose should tell me the story. That if this dog food is really like what they say it is, it's really got a lot of fish in it. And I don't smell any fish at all. None. But what I do smell is you can smell those peas. Let me look at it. Let me look at the texture of this. It's kind of flat. The kernels are kind of flat. And not too dense and fluffy. That's based because of the peas and the peas and the potatoes. So it's a really compact dog food, but you really get a lot of it though. So I'm gonna mix this dog food with my other dog food. I mix it with don't smell no fish. And the funny thing is when you go to Blue Buffalo, which contains fish or salmon, and there's another fish food that you can smell the fish in. I got a pretty good nose, not the best nose, but I got a nose on me. I cannot smell no fish. That means that this dog food does not have number one ingredient is not salmon. The number two ingredient is not ocean fish. The number one ingredient in this food is probably potatoes, followed by a little bit of fish, and what they really have in this dog food is pea protein. So you're looking at potatoes and pea protein, which is not a bad thing because we feed a lot of chicken around here. And sometimes you got to understand when you bombard a dog with a lot of stuff, that's what gives you the bad reactions. You bombard it with a lot of chicken or a lot of beef, it's just constantly just loading up on one thing. It's just like you eating cheeseburgers every day. You never get any vegetables, you never get any fruits, you never get any grains, you're just eating cheeseburgers. So what I'll say with this food is it's a lot for the $60. You know, it's a bulk food for a good price. So it's probably just above crappy dog food. So that puts you like right in the middle. You got your crap, your dog chow, your Purina. Then you got stuff that's even worse than that, like a retriever. This right here is probably right above dog chow and right before you get to the good shit like Victor. But it's all about how the dogs react to it. But it does have some great added effects because it's not a highly grained dog food. We're gonna see. We're gonna see how it makes the dogs poop, and we'll come back with a review. My wife come back with a review to tell you how the dog's stomachs reacted to this dog food. Thanks.